Hey, welcome back to another video. I'm Alexander Creek, astrologer and intuitive. If you're listening to my podcast, To the Stars and Astrology and Intuition podcast, hello, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the really spicy full moon in Aries happening in a couple days, on October 17th at about 24 degrees Aries. So we'll be talking about the astrology around this full moon, as well as a little mini reading and check-in for each of the rising signs. So we'll go ahead and get to that in just a minute. I did want to take a moment and plug something really quick. I'm going to be doing a free group healing meditation on this Saturday, October 18th at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. It's going to be online. So if you want to move energy, clear your space, call your energy back to yourself, and also send healing to different parts of the world, I think we're going to be focusing on the Middle East this time and just kind of sending some love and energy in that direction. This is a good way to start learning about energetic tools, about how to move and clear energy. And I just felt like, you know, now's the time that we start doing this. So I did it. I did a meditation last week. It went really well. If you cannot make this one live, go ahead and register anyway, and I'll send you a recording. If for some reason you are watching this way later and you still want to do the meditation, it will be uploaded for free on my website, dogstarOracle.com. So, and then all the links to register will be in my notes, or you can head to my website, dogstarOracle.com, to register. So let's go ahead and talk about this full moon in Aries. All right, so this full moon is very spicy, like I mentioned. The reason for this is mainly because it is going to square Mars, and it's also squaring Pluto. So let's talk about what that means. This is a kind of an energetic marker that the second half of October going into the beginning of November does feel especially hot around topics like conflict and right on time for election season, right? If you're here in the United States, and so I'll go into detail about all of this now. So first of all, the full moon in Aries, it's going to be spicy anyway, even without these different aspects, because Aries is a fire sign. It is a fire sign that it is the sign of the warrior. It's the first sign of the zodiac, and this is about initiating, pioneering, warrior energy, just doing something because I feel like it, like the impulse to start, to go, to just do it, to take to go into leadership. And Aries is a sign ruled by Mars, the planet of conflict, the planet of like the planet in astrology that sort of governs like our energy reserves, and how we approach conflict. And this full moon is going to be directly squaring Mars, like in a pretty tight aspect. A square aspect in astrology is a dynamic, challenging, in your face energy. And it's interesting because Mars is in Cancer right now, and Mars is going to be in Cancer for quite some time. We have a really significant story with Mars in Cancer. And so I would pay attention right now to, if anything, in your relationships, if anything in your physical body, in your environment and surroundings, if anything, if you're noticing something that's irritating you, or you're feeling some inflammation, like in your body, and it's kind of persistent, I would definitely take note of that now, because that storyline may come back around more intensely to be really dealt with when Mars is retrograde in Cancer. And by dealing with by dealing with some of these things now, instead of waiting until it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, is going to help you have an easier time dealing with Mars retrograde in Cancer. Mars will actually go retrograde in early December. It's going to go retrograde in Leo and then back its ass up to Cancer. So, and it's, Mars in Cancer, it's, often like topics around home and family, how we feel safe. And Mars in Cancer is very touchy and very sensitive and highly defensive about these topics. Mars in Cancer sometimes has a harder time maybe speaking up for itself. It can be maybe a little passive aggressive or skirt around issues. It's a highly emotional Mars. It's not a traditional Mars. Technically, Mars in Cancer is in its fall, meaning it doesn't have necessarily the access to the same resources that, say, a Mars in Aries would. And sometimes it can hesitate to act or can be a bit insecure. And so what I'm kind of seeing for this full moon is a few things. It sort of feels like this is a Mars in Cancer that feels like it is sort of being pushed too far. It's saying like, "Don't fuck with my family, my loved ones," and it feels like the like an explosion, because when Mars in Cancer gets angry and like actually like lets it go, it tends to be an explosion because Cancer is water energy. Mars heats things up. Mars in Cancer is almost like boiled water. It's like boiled water kind of spilling out. And that's sort of what I'm getting around this full moon. It's this sort of power, anger, passion really kind of spilling out. I was seeing some content online saying, like, oh, Mars is weak in Cancer. And I think saying Mars is weak in Cancer is a total misunderstanding of how Mars in Cancer actually functions. There's quite a few like professional athletes and really successful people who have Mars in Cancer, and it's because, and when you have this placement wherever you have Mars in your chart, it's like those things do not come easy for you, you know, and so I think I got a little bit off track here. One second. So with this full moon, I could see, I could see us like really like defending something, defending beliefs, defending people that are more vulnerable than us. Um, I will say it is interesting noting that, and I'm not a mundane astrologer, but I do, pay attention to world events, and I'm noticing kind of what's going on. And there's been more explosions and violence in the Middle East, with Israel and Gaza and Lebanon. And this astrology does not bode well necessarily for that kind of quieting down necessarily. And this astrology also too, just the general tone I think in the air is going to be very tense over the next few days. Because not only do we have this full moon, which is kind of like this explosion, this really kind of explosive energy, Mars will also be opposing Pluto. So this full moon is going to be square Pluto as well. But so to kind of explain it, Mars is will be about I forget exactly where, but like somewhere in like the mid 20 degrees of Cancer. And by the time, like literally, I think like the day before Election Day in the United States, November 3rd or November 4th, Mars and Pluto will be at an exact opposition. So there's this building tension with this full moon. It's maybe kind of giving me like the first explosion of kind of more to come, because Mars opposing Pluto, that aspect is really kind of giving the feeling of like big power struggles, of like, or small conflicts can be really intensified and get and get a lot bigger. So, because Pluto in astrology can represent those with like the power and the resources and control. And whenever like Pluto touches something, it tends to intensify it and make it much more intense, essentially. So, if Mars is an aspect that represents like conflict and aggression and opposition, like we are directly opposed to something, there's someone that we're in conflict with. I just feel like the atmosphere, it does feel quite I just feel like the political atmosphere, the geopolitical atmosphere, just kind of stuff in the world feels very much like it feels very conflicty, very aggressive, essentially, and kind of like these two forces that are really at odds with one another. On a personal level, however, this energy around this full moon could kind of give you the push to make a big breakthrough, to say like, enough is enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. I've been pushed too far, right? Especially with this Mars and Pluto energy, and again, the full moon happens on the 17th. This kind of triggers this Mars Pluto stuff though, and this Mars Pluto stuff doesn't conclude or doesn't reach that exact energy until about November 3rd. So it's almost like we have like a good 2 weeks of this sort of full moon energy. um so there is this, you could like really feel like this push, or this, this feeling of like courage to just kind of go for it, really kind of sparking with this full moon. But I will say that this full moon, it does kind of feel, this full moon specifically on the 17th does feel more like, I don't know, maybe like defending oneself or like defending someone else. I would say if you're gonna if there are things that are annoying you right now or that are irritating you, or you know, um, that you feel like you have to stand up for yourself, I would do it now and don't wait until it's boiling over. Like nip these things in the bud. If you're mad at your partner for something, like don't stew about it for weeks, which is a Mars and Cancer thing. Talk to them about it now, essentially, because it's like small things could just get a lot bigger with this full moon energy. But I do think a lot of you will be asserting yourself, standing up for yourselves. Like if you're like, I've been waiting forever to like start this thing, maybe do it on the full moon in Aries, just like get it over with. It's kind of like ripping the band-aid off kind of energy. So intense, passionate, defending oneself energy does not have to be negative for you. It can actually be very positive for you. But I will say the energy around this full moon and the ensuing Mars Pluto opposition, it does feel tense. And that is part of why I'm doing that guided meditation, is because I just feel like now is the time for light workers to be sending good energy to Mother Earth, and also to help move and clear energy in our own spaces, and that we don't have to constantly be kind of plugged into the fear, the paranoia, and the intensification of conflict that is happening kind of like around the world right now. So let's talk about what this might represent for each sign. All right, so Aries, this full moon is falling in your first house. So, and actually, I probably should mention, if you know your rising sign, listen for your full moon horoscope for your rising. Um, the sun and moon does not matter as much. If you don't know your rising, listen for your sun or moon and go kind of with what resonates for you. But I would listen for your rising sign if possible, because that's how astrologers write horoscopes to begin with. But if you're like an Aries sun or moon, you might want to listen to the sun or moon part of that as well. So for Aries rising, the full moon falling in your first house of self and identity, it's kind of not rocket science to say like a full moon in your sign, you're probably just going to feel more. You might feel more more emotional, not intentional. You might feel more emotional, a lot more in touch with this energy. And this could represent like a personal completion or ending for you as well, especially just because maybe it's like some kind of chapter closing, another one beginning. It's not, I don't necessarily see this as like a peaceful full moon. This does feel like kind of like a tense full moon, or even some intensity or some conflict around it. It doesn't necessarily need to be bad, or it doesn't need to be felt in this completely explicit, obvious way. But this is not the easiest of full moons. This full moon is square Mars in your fourth house. So, there could be something going on with home or family at this time that we're kind of in conflict with. It could be anything from like home renovations and like getting things in order with home, and that's kind of getting in the way of like personal life stuff. It could be something around like you defending your family, or you being in conflict, like you being in conflict with your family as well. There's something family related going on or home related that doesn't feel super smooth, essentially, around this full moon. Also, I do want to touch on the fact of Pluto is leaving Capricorn pretty soon. And this is a whole other topic, and I think I need to make another video on this, but this is definitely an end of an era for you. If you've had a lot of, since 2008, so it's kind of vague and it's a really long time, but if you just had a lot of trials, tribulations, transformations, intense evolution, deaths around your career, like what it is that you do, what you see yourself doing, things with authority figures and power. There's a big shift going on because Pluto is going to be moving into your 11th house. So I feel like your goals and objectives are really going to be changing. You're going to see an evolution in what you're trying to manifest, or what your goals and ambitions actually are over the next few years. So I did want to touch on that too, because there is like a passing of the torch going on with Pluto. So let's look at Taurus. So Taurus rising, the full moon is falling in your 12th house. This is a more hidden full moon for you. This is a time when things that have been hidden or in the background or in subconscious things may sort of come up to the surface. This could be the 12th house rules things like rest and retreat and isolation. It also rules like how you might sabotage yourself, or even people in your life that secretly may not actually have your back. You may actually kind of find out about that. um, I'm gonna say it's more likely that you're just kind of finding that your energy is going to be tuned into things that are sort of hidden, that are normally hidden to you, are going to become more visible around this time. And also, this may just be a time where you need a little bit more rest. I'm going to say take care of your health right now too, because this full moon is going to be with Chiron, the wounded healer. So this is a time to maybe to that something that needs healing might come up this time, whether it's physical or emotional. The This is squaring Mars in the third house of communication. You may really find that you have something to get off your chest, something that you need to say around this time as well. So you actually, I would say maybe practice some direct communication throughout Mars and Cancer's sort of stay through your third house. You might want to listen to my Mars and Cancer episode. I did a whole episode on Mars and Cancer and kind of what it means for each rising sign. So you might want to check that out. This also could just sort of like represent, like a little dust up or conflict that you're having with a sibling or a neighbor. There could be something going on with your mode of transportation, or something sort of going on like tense in your sort of local community for you with this full moon. But I'm gonna say try to take it easy around this time, but also like speak directly if you are having an issue with someone in your life around this time. Gemini, we have the full moon in your 11th house. I was like, nope. I almost had the word there. Full moon in your 11th house of this is the house of friends or people who have your back, your allies, casual friends, networking, any groups that you belong to. It might be a time that you maybe end some kind of friendship or like networking relationship, where you like leave some kind of group, or perhaps there's like a peak of activity around friendships or these different groups that you belong to. Perhaps that you are looking at like changing your goals right now as well, or your hopes and wishes for the future. Um, I kind of forgot to mention this in the general forecast, but this moon is conjunct Chiron in the 11th house. Perhaps that you maybe something stewing under the surface for you and friendships right now might like kind of come up to be healing, like may come up to be healed around this full moon. This one, and again, this full moon is square Mars. It's happening in your second house. So there could be something financial, maybe potentially a little bit stressful around this full moon, or just something simply that you have to take action on. You're like, this can't wait. I have to deal with this now, right? Because Aries energy is now; it's immediate. And I'm going to say you may just be budgeting more, trying to save more, or spending more, because Mars is going to be in your second house through its time in Cancer. So there might be something kind of financial for you coming up around this full moon. Again, it doesn't have to be bad, but it does feel like something that has to be dealt with immediately. Um, we have the full moon falling in the 10th house. So Cancer rising. Okay, there we go. I was like, I cannot talk today. This recording is a bit of a challenge. The full moon. So I think that you're probably going to feel this full moon a lot if you're Cancer rising. Um, there could be a completion, culmination, basic full moon stuff happening in your career sector, right? Like this could be it's possible that you're maybe feeling a little bit more feisty anyway, a little bit more assertive, because Mars is in your sign. Having Mars go through Cancer may prompt you to initiate things more, to take action, to say enough is enough. That really might be coming up for you around this time in a more personal way. There could be some completions kind of happening maybe in career for you, or like a culmination, a completion, just some sort of like new chapter starting. It could be connected to home and family too, because we did just have an eclipse in that part of your chart. And I didn't mention this in the general forecast, but this full moon is conjunct Chiron as well. So there is something about like the like a wound that needs healing that may be coming up for you around the time of this that may come up around the time of this full moon. It could have something to do with your career. It could also just be totally personal to you. It doesn't necessarily have to do with career, but something around your maybe your public your public your public reputation, what you are known for, might be changing around this full moon. But basically, for you, I kind of feel like this is a don't fuck with me full moon for you, just because it is squaring Mars in your first house. So it's sort of like, whatever problem has sort of been stewing under the surface is sort of like, this is time to be dealt with now. There's no more fucking around. It's basically kind of what is happening for you with this full moon. And then also because Mars is squaring Pluto in your seventh house partnership right now too. So it's like, if there's tension in your one-on-one relationships, this is like the time when those things sort of start to boil over and to kind of be dealt with around this full moon. For Leo, we have what's going on here. Full moon for you is happening in your ninth house, so it could have to do something with your belief system. I could see you frankly arguing about politics, with this full moon, because the full moon happening in your ninth house is about your belief system, your philosophy. It could also be a completion or an event having to do with like higher education and like just kind of education and spirituality in general. You could be just be really kind of pulled to something educational, spirituality, something like that around this time. Something with travel and other cultures. Perhaps there's something that's kind of coming up to be healed around those topics as well, because this full moon is conjunct Chiron. The full moon for you is squaring Mars and Pluto in your 12th and 6th houses. I would say if there's something going on physical body health related, don't ignore it right now. The full moon might exacerbate those things or just kind of bring it up to be noticed so you can deal with it. It can also have to do I'm just gonna say, like, just because this full moon is squaring Mars in your 12th house, this has to do with like it's kind of interesting. I feel like Mars going through your 12th house is sort of excavating your subconscious stuff, like stuff that is sort of poisonous in your subconscious mind. Mars and Cancer could be kind of excavating that a little bit. Your anxieties, worries, any self-sabotaging tendencies, these things might come up for you. So it's like I do feel like there is this ninth housey component, where we're drawn to education and travel and our belief system and all this stuff, but it is pointing to things kind of happening beneath the surface that's affecting emotional and physical health for you. It's interesting. I can't quite this full moon's complicated, so I'm having a hard time just kind of summing it up for like one word for everyone. But I would definitely pay attention to the signals that your body and your emotions are telling you over this full moon. And I do think this is a good full moon to be connecting with your spirituality as well. This is a good time to connect with the divine, with your spirit guides. Like, hey, like, what is it that needs to come up to be healed, like released and kind of burned away at this time? Virgo, we have the full moon in Virgo. Full moon in Virgo. What the hell? Virgo rising. The full moon for you is happening in your 8th house. This could be about, so the eclipses have been bouncing around your financial sectors past year and a half. This past solar eclipse was in your second house of income. This full moon is happening in the house of inheritance, insurance, loans, other people's money and finances, essentially. It's interesting because I know my mom's Virgo rising might be listening to this. Hi, Mom. And she, our great aunt died, and she got some money, but there was also like stuff going on with like the cousins and just some shady shit and having for my mom to deal with. Just to be clear, my mother is not the shady one. There were some other shady business happening, but it's interesting seeing these activations and knowing that, we got it. Like she got like a little chunk of change and had to deal with funeral stuff and all this 8th house business, right? So full moon coming up in that 8th house for Virgo risings, stuff dealing with, frankly, mortality, inheritance. This full moon could also be just triggering some healing release, and this is not a healing release where it feels good. It's like, oh, that hurts before it's released. because the eighth house has to do with like emotional trauma and kind of stuff that we're carrying around that's just emotionally traumatic. So this could be like processing some of that, processing some of these deeper emotional kinds of things. I'm going to say for some of you as well, this could just be an event to completion, something you have to deal with now immediately. That does kind of feel like it is tied to other people's finances and resources. This could be having to stand up for yourself, dealing with some of that stuff. There could be a component of maybe something with like a friend is involved here, or some kind of conflict with a friend, or conflict with like a group that you are a part of, or just having to take action related to a friend or ally, because this is going to square Mars in your 11th house of friends and allies. It could also be something tied to like your hopes and wishes and goals and like objectives for the future. It's like, okay, there's something going on with money and joint resources and emotionally, but I'm also like thinking about maybe how I'm going to spend this money, or what actions I want to take in like the broader kind of scheme of my life. Like, what is it that I actually want to manifest right now, essentially? And also, yeah, that's what I'm gonna say for Virgo rising. For Libra rising, um, what's going on for you, little bitches? Just kidding. I didn't mean to call Libra risings bitches. It's not what I meant. I just meant it in like a fun and endearing way. So don't be offended. So Libra rising, this full moon is happening in the seventh house of relationships. So there's something dynamic, passionate, powerful, maybe conflict with something in relationships. It's like, hey, we need to have a talk. We need to have a tense discussion. We're maybe taking things to the next level, but we need to talk about some things first. There is something coming up to be healed also here too, within like the context of relationships. This is not a healing, gentle release. This is something uncomfortable to be sort of purged right now, just because this full moon is going to be conjunct Chiron. Also, this full moon, and by the way, Libra rising, you're coming off solar eclipse in Libra that we had 2 weeks ago. So, you've been processing something. Like there is some sort of, you've really been, I think that you've sort of been giving birth to a new self as of late, because you've really been letting go of a lot of what doesn't serve you, a lot of people pleasing tendencies, harmony for harmony's sake. And like, it's sort of like healing that stuff in maybe even dealing with some like draining things with your physical body, kind of coming into a new identity. So you're really kind of going through a lot of growth at this moment. And there's like a big release with this full moon. I would say assert yourself with this full moon. Don't let things be swept under the rug, because those could explode later. Um, you may also be having an issue. I can see you right now really trying to get ahead in career or work. There's simply a lot of effort, maybe with career, trying to get ahead. A lot on your plate right now, or perhaps there's even conflict within your work, or conflict with an authority figure in your life right now, because Mars is in that 10th house of career and authority figures. So, that's sort of what this full moon could be about for you, is sort of like relationships and career. And where is there? And I also want to point out too, you're ending a very long cycle of Pluto being in Capricorn. And for you in whole sign houses, that would be in your home and family sector. There is some really big dynamic shifting within your family, or within your home, or like your family and home and private life. There is a really big shift happening. And I don't know if you can maybe sense that with Pluto turning direct recently and going into Aquarius very soon, but there is something happening with that. So that might be a part of this full moon story for you as well. So, Scorpio rising, the full moon is happening in your sixth house. I want you to be careful with health right now. Don't push yourself too much. If your body is saying, hey, don't have that cocktail tonight, don't have that cocktail. Okay. um, because this full moon is happening in your sixth house of bodily health, as well as work and pets. So there's also something maybe coming up to be healed with health. Maybe you've been kind of focusing on your health for quite a while now. The eclipses have been kind of bopping around in this house, and this full moon is conjunct Chiron in the wounded healer in your sixth house. So it's something your body might be telling you, like, hey, I'm trying to work on healing this right now. So it could also just be a period where you're really focused on your health, on your physical health, on your health routines. It could also be that something is going on with work for you. Maybe there's like an ending around work, your work projects, maybe your coworkers leaving, or there's some shift happening in your workplace. You could also just be very focused on your objectives as far as your work right now. Something could also very well kind of come up with like a pet. There could be just something coming up with like a dog or a cat or like a little bird or something in your life. Um, I've seen that too many times to ignore that being a possible thing with sixth house events. By the way, if you think he's like, what? I don't know what he's talking about. Pets, whatever. Okay, I don't care if you have a pet. Someone else out there could have a pet. So, whatever. Moving on. Okay, Scorpio rising. Also, this full moon is squaring Mars in your ninth house. You could very well be defending your beliefs. This could be you defending like political beliefs or passionately um, uh, like delving into topics around education and spirituality. Because this is squaring Mars in Cancer. Mars is moving through your ninth house. The ninth house rules travel, education, spirituality, and your beliefs. So, given that it's a square, it's a more challenging energy. So, it's like, hey, I'm putting myself out there. I'm saying, hey, I know this is unpopular, but this is what I think. Or that you're really kind of diving into some sort of spirituality chapter of your life, or that you're really wanting to there's something coming up with like travel plans or something, but there's something going on with Mars in that ninth house of travel and spirituality. But I really see you kind of defending, or not even defending, just like passionately like saying like, here's what I think about this, so get over it. That's kind of the energy here. Um so let's go forward. And I do want to say, Scorpio rising, if you've been a little tired recently, that's Libra season and it's almost over. So just know that that's part of this Libra season, is like a little bit of a lowered vitality for Scorpio rising. Sagittarius rising, the full moon for you is happening in your fifth house. There's fire, there's passion, but there's also maybe conflict going on with love life. Um, Fifth house is romance, sex. It also could be something coming up with children right now as well, like children, child care, things like that. It also could be this passionate energy, but also like kind of frustrated energy around your creative projects or hobbies or games or something that is connected to that. This full moon is squaring Mars in the eighth house. For some of you, this could very well be like child support stuff, frankly, because I've talked about this before. When we have this uncomfortable relationship with Mars moving through your house of other people's money, like I was just talking to a Sag rising friend last night. That's kind of exactly what's happening. So I'm trying to get that out of my head, but the dynamic with Mars here is that there is, maybe having a conflict or having to defend oneself or take action that is a little bit uncomfortable relating to eighth house money. So investments, insurance, financial aid, grants, loans, child support, things like that. There could be a disagreement over that, or we're just having to take action to assert ourselves in that area. And um, keep in mind too, I do think I'm gonna say financially things might look really different for you guys next year for Sag rising. Pluto is moving out of Capricorn. It's been in your financial sector since 2008. That's a really big shift on the planet of power, control, and transformation, moving out of that financial sector. And Mars is going to spend quite a bit of time in your eighth house, right? So by like next April, I just wonder if your financial story is going to look a lot different, or whatever fight you're fighting financially right now, or whatever it is or whatever kind of thing that you're going through that's requiring some effort. I do think that's going to look a lot different. You're going to be in a different story next year. For Capricorn rising, the full moon is falling in your fourth house. So this could be completion, ending, emotional thing around a family member, your home, your parents. something going on with like living situation, possibly. It is something that does feel like it has to, when it comes up, it has to be dealt with now. Because it is in the sign of Aries. It could be you, asserting yourself. It's like, we have to get this done. We got to get this home project completed today, right? There's likely something healing about this, like something that kind of hurts a little bit, but there's like a healing release to it because it is conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. Um, and this full moon is squaring Mars in the seventh house. So this conflict likely deals with like another person, some kind of relationship. It doesn't have to be conflict, but it does feel like something that needs to be resolved right away. It's like, we need to take care of this. There's some action going on with a partner, with a business partner, with a best friend, with a romantic partner. It's something going on with your partnerships. Partnerships are going to feel a little intense over the next couple months, just because you have Mars moving through your seventh house. So partnerships may not feel like the smoothest, but they're also kind of like the key to your growth right now. But there's something about home and family partnerships. Last thing for you, Pluto is moving out of Capricorn. I did not make a video on this. I'm sure you may be seeing this on the internet, net somewhere, maybe. Maybe not. But Pluto has been in your sign for the past, since 2008. You've gone through some trials and tribulations, my Capricorn risings, a lot of evolution, a lot of dealing with your own power, a lot of fighting, a lot of power struggles. And so just know that there's really big stuff happening for you right now, even if you're like, even if you're not fully conscious of it. And Pluto moving out of Capricorn for you, it's going to be a really big deal. That happens within the next couple weeks. So just know you'll never have to deal with Pluto and Capricorn again. So, okay. Aquarius rising. The full moon is happening in your. Okay, full moon is happening in your third house. So this is a spicy full moon for you in the realm of communication. There could be a completion ending, around with a sibling, or something like emotional coming up with like a sibling, or like extended family member. It could also be something having to do with like transportation. You could be working on some kind of communication or learning project at this time as well, or even teaching something. Again, this Aries full moon is like, let's do this now, let's initiate, let's go. Like, this can't wait. It's that kind of energy. There is something kind of healing to this full moon, even though I think it's tense and kind of uncomfortable. There's like a healing release with this full moon being conjunct Chiron, that the wounded healer. There's maybe something tied in with work and health for you right now too, or some kind of conflict going on like there that needs to be addressed, or some kind of like work project that you have to take on that's a little comfortable, or it's a kind of conflict with like a coworker, or just some kind of uncomfortable Martian energy that we need to take action or initiate something around now that feels a little uncomfortable going on with health or work. So it could be that your body's telling you something. It's like, hey, we need to take care of this. We need to heal this. We need to work on this. It could be that you're really focused on like exercise and like pushing yourself in the gym or something right now too. But there's something, I just feel like your words are going to be spicy around this full moon. This is an encouragement to assert yourself, and to, maybe not necessarily, I would say, be assertive with this full moon, but maybe just try to be tactful if possible. And then take care of whatever is coming up with work and health for you with this, at this time as well. For Pisces rising, this full moon is in your second house. There's something going to be coming up financially for you. Perhaps that you have to spend on something. Perhaps there's like an event connected to your finances that you're concluding some kind of income, or you're bringing another income in. There's something going with spending, saving, budgeting, finances around this time. It could be that maybe the source of, if there is stress around this, it could be from a child. So maybe there's like an expense around a child right now, or something with child care, because it is square Mars in your fifth house of children. It could be something like, it could be something fun too. I mean, it could be like, listen, I have this thing I really want to do that's like fun, but it's going to cost me some money, because fifth house can be recreation and games and vacations and like things like that. So, Or there could simply be two unrelated things going on, or seemingly unrelated things, where it's like, hey, there's a thing financially coming up, but also there's like our love life is heated up right now. There's like a love and sex thing happening. It's kind of uncomfortable. I'm not sure what to do with the situationship at this point. So there could be like a conflict around like a dating, romance, sex thing. That's a weird way to put it, but I do see that possibly happening with this full moon. So, but I do really see kind of like the finances here. I'm going to say there's an opportunity to heal like a money wound around this full moon, because this full moon is conjunct Chiron, which has been floating around your second house of money and income and worth for many months. So there could be like a healing release thing around money for you, and like manifesting the money that you need and how to take care of yourself and all of that. So that is kind of what that's all she wrote for this episode. I'm gonna try to do a bonus episode this week too. I really want to talk about the astrology of the moon, just generally talk about like what sign like the moon in your birth chart, essentially. So look for that. Don't forget about that healing meditation. The link for that will be in the comments on YouTube or in the show notes, or just go to my website, docsororacle.com, and it will be there. So thanks all for listening. Thanks for letting me have a little break. And, you know, I wouldn't say happy full moon. It's not a happy full moon, but I wish you a powerfully constructive full moon that you can sort of channel your sort of inner badass, essentially. So talk to you soon, everybody.